Yo guys, it's JJ here, and today I'm going to be walking you through an ESTG tutorial, and it will be of course in the sound of his new album, Mad. Came out last Friday as of the moment of this recording. But before we get into this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We're on the way to 1,000 subs. I really appreciate all the support, so means a lot. And second of all, I have got a lot of drum sounds that I am using from a Detroit kit. Link is down below for free. Go grab that, and now let's just get into the video. So first thing you need to know is we are using Analog Lab 5 as the first sound, and we're using a preset called Evolver. It's like this weird moving pad sound, and I think it was from the Loophole Deluxe pack or the Millennial pack. So as you guys can see, it's a very simple pattern, and this pattern literally repeats every bar. So if we just focus in on this single bar right here, you can see we start from the root notes, then we go down and we do this nice little climbing thing. And then to be honest, you know what I thought to myself? I thought, let me just go back down to here. And I thought, let me just climb up again. And it sounded really dope, I can't lie. So I thought, let me just stick with it. And then I just repeated it over for a full 4. And then copy and pasted it for a full 8. Then the next thing I did was click Alt R, and I messed with the panning, as you guys can see here, and the velocity of the sound. Firstly, by changing the velocity, it makes it sound more human, and then by adding the panning, it just gives the sound a nice little bit of movement. Sounds super dope overall, and it really suits this ESTG aesthetic. So for the effects, we got ourselves the instance of Portal, and I've used a preset called Astral. Got the mix around 50%, just to give it a nice little vibe, you know what I mean? Add this nice little bit of air candy to the whole sound. Next up, we got ourselves the instance of Pro Q3. It's essentially just an EQ. I cut off all these lows down here, ducked some harsh frequencies, and I raised a few of the high ends. And then last but not least, I got myself a reverb, creates ambience, and of course reverb is always going to be needed. So these are the presets I used, and as well as that, I cut off a lot of the lows in the reverb so it doesn't clash with the bass later on. And last but not least, I stereo separated this sound around 30% just to widen it a bit in the mix, give it a bit more movement again. Next up, we got ourselves an instance of Piano V3, and I am using the original preset that comes alongside it called American Home Clean. And of course, when you're making an ESTG beat, especially for his new album, he's got a lot of these nice hard sounds, and of course he always sticks with a nice classic piano in there at some point, so that's why I use the piano. And of course, speaking of pianos, we got ourselves the pattern right here. It repeats every 4 bars. It's essentially very simple, but let me walk you through it. First thing you need to know is we are starting at the root notes, of course, same like how the pad does. But then what I did here was just take it down 4 semitones, and then I left a little bit of a space to create this cool bounce, and then I played the next note again. Then I repeated the pattern, but instead of having this note play up here, I just took it down 1 semitone. And as you guys can obviously see, and you've probably heard this in all of my videos, whenever these notes, as you can see, are 1 semitone apart, it creates this tension in between the notes. It sounds really dark. And there we have it. As for effects, again, we've got ourselves another EQ, a lot of the lows cut out, and a few of the highs And then I only added a little bit of reverb for the keys, just because I feel like reverb on a low-end piano just sounds a bit too harsh for me, so only put a little bit. But the keys that we have used here essentially is going to be the root notes for the whole track. And then of course, last but not least, stereo separation, 55%, widening it in the mix because I don't like how harsh it is when it's in front of you in the face. So just stereo separating it, giving it a bit of width, I felt like I did a good thing. Next up, we've got ourselves a preset from Analog Lab 5. It's a go-to plugin for me, and I'm using a preset called the Bass Source. This is found in the bank, which is called Artillery. Really dope bank, I highly recommend getting it. And of course, this is the pattern we got. It's essentially just the root notes, which is what the piano was playing before. So there's not much to explain here, and I don't even put effects on the bass because it just sounds good by itself, and this is what it sounds like. And there we have it. As you can see, the bass fills up all that low end, adds a bit of thickness to the whole melody. And again, that ESTG vibe is really being created here. And of course, last but not least, and definitely not least, we've got ourselves an instance of Contact 7. And I'm using the preset Melodic Phrase D sharp minor from this pack called Vocalize 3 Gravity Pack 8. So before we actually show you the pattern, as you guys can see, I took it down a whole octave so the reason I took it down 12 semitones is because I've noticed ESTG likes to take the vocals down quite a lot in terms of pitch, and it sounds really good, gives it a nice little dark aesthetic especially, and I think it really suits the vibe of the track, so that's why I took it down 12 semitones. And of course, I got myself a very basic pattern here, just following the essential root notes again, but the sound was really dope, and then just found myself some other phrases that sounded really good. So before I walk you guys through this, let me just show you the effects real quick. But before I show you guys the full melody, let me walk you through the vocal effects real quick. Got ourselves the instance of EQ again. We got ourselves all the highs and a lot of the lows cut out. So the first thing we've got, of course, is ourselves an EQ, cutting off a few highs, a lot of the lows, you know, a bit like a telephone EQ, as you can see. Next up, I added a fair amount of reverb. Of course, you know, when we want to give that ambience to the sound, we want to make it sound super dope, so of course that's why I did that. And then last but not least, I started separating the sound 100%, just because I wanted it super wide in your headphones, and it just really gives that grand effect from the vocal. And then last but not least, I rendered out the whole thing, creating a loop out of it, and I took it up one semitone, making it from a D sharp minor to an E sharp to an E minor. So without further ado, this is what the whole melody sounds like. And there we have it. Sounds super hard, super ESCG vibe. I really enjoyed this melody. But let's just get straight into these drums. So the first thing to do with the drums, of course, is the clap slash snare pattern. But in this instance, it's actually both. I've laid a snare with a clap, and we've got ourselves, of course, this very nice basic pattern. Does the job. Perfect for the ESTG. And then next up, we got ourselves a hi-hat pattern, and as you can see again, just a simple two-step because I thought it sounded good. I didn't want to get the drums going too ham, and we have a lot of perks coming in later, so I kept the hi-hats quite simple. So without further ado, this is what the hats and the snare slash layered clap sound like. There you have it. Already sounding great, and we haven't even shown you the rest. And now, of course, it's time to go through the 808. We are using a Spins 808, of course, you know, it's a go-to 808 of mine. Love it. And, of course, this is the pattern I've got laid down. We are just following the root notes that the piano had before. And as you can see again, after every kind of 2-bar, we add ourselves a bit of variation here. Just this nice little extra note. Gives it a bit more of a bounce, sounds super dope. And then as well as that, something I've done for my 808 and my kick, I click Control A, use my right mouse scroller wheel, and just scroll that thing all the way to the top, as you can see from the bottom. And what that does is it maxes the velocities out of your kick and your 808. This makes it so your 808 and kick, they sound harder, they punch through the mix a bit more, and it really suits the aesthetic of trap, you know, rap, makes your artists want to hop on your beat a bit more, and even producers will think, okay, that bass is hitting harder. So that's a little bit of sauce for you guys. And then of course for the kick, it's essentially the 808 pattern, but all kept at the same pitch, which is of course C. And of course, as I've said before, we have maxed out our velocity. So without further ado, this is what the 808 and kick sound like. And there we have it. But before we move on to the final part of the beat, I just need to show you guys real quick. The Spins 808, I've done a bit of changing to it. Pretty much put the out knob around 48%. Then you can go up here like this, and I messed with the EQ, as you guys can see, and I've messed with the boost, as you guys can see. Essentially, all I did was pretty much shorten my 808, made it thumpier, and it gave it a nice little ESTG vibe. Now, last but not least, we've got ourselves the perks, and I'm going to go through all of them and play it all together. So first things first, we got ourselves this nice little perk here. It's a zap perk. It sounds like a ray gun, really. Repeats itself every 4 bars. And this is the pattern, and this is what the sound is. You know, we've all heard that before. And next up, we've got ourselves this nice little perk roll I've got going here. Again, every 4 bar just repeats itself, and the perk is sounding like this. We've all heard it before. Again, it really suits that ESCG vibe, and same with the previous perk. You know, it's all about sound selection when it comes to these drums. And of course, you can get these sounds from the free kit down below, so hey, go check that link out. And of course, last but not least, the final perk. It's a nice little roll that occurs at the end of every 4 bar, and the perk sounds like this. So after hearing all my talk, this is what the final beat sounds like. And there you have it, folks. That's the full beat for ESTG's Mad. But before we wrap it up, let me walk you guys through the structure of the beat real quick. So when we're looking at the beat, it looks a bit complex, but then again, as I say in every video, it's actually very simple. So let me just break this down. Looking at the left section, we got this nice little 16-bar intro. I first begin by having the keys and the pad play. Then I introduce the beat. Then I introduce the bass. And then throughout the second half of this 8-bar here, I introduce the vocals, just so it can quickly drop into the chorus. Then, of course, we got ourselves the chorus here. It's 2 8-bars, so a total of 16 bars. And what we've got going on here is we've got a perk missing, and we've got ourselves the vocal missing. But then in the second part, I reintroduce the vocal, of course, and introduce the perk, because you know what? You want to keep some variation for the artist, and it makes the beat sound a bit better, a bit more progression going on, you know what I'm saying? Then we've got ourselves, of course, the verse section here, and it's pretty much 3 8 bars, so a total of 24 bars. When we're looking at the first part of the verse, of course it's the first 8 bar. We got ourselves with the pad playing alone, alongside the 808, the kick, the hats, and the snare / clap pattern. But to signify the transition into the main part of the verse, I actually just took out the little part here. Then of course we're introducing the main part of the verse. I introduced the vocals as a new melodic component, making it sound a bit nicer, and of course all these perks are being thrown into the mix because hey, these perks go hard, man, so gotta put them all in. And then for the final section of the verse, which is what I like to call the pre-hook, because it's the 8 bar just before the hook, I got myself all of the melodic components playing, including the bass, of course. In my opinion, by the way, the bass before the hook, always just go for it. It sounds super dope. And of course, we got ourselves the hi-hats, we got ourselves the clap / snare, a few perks and the kicks playing, of course, because you know the 808 in here, so we got the kick. And then I take the hi-hats out completely for the second part of this 8 bar, just so it really just signifies like a nice little clap / kick breakdown going on. And then of course, repeats itself back into the chorus, then again the verse yet again by copying and pasting, and then one more chorus section, giving you a total of an intro, chorus, verse, and the chorus, which is 2 verses, 3 choruses, 1 intro. And guys, there you have it. Full video for you, how to make a beat for ESTG's album called Mad. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe. I appreciate all the love and support, and of course, take it easy. Peace.